if you make a members of
It's saying right here, after a member of the public alleged that they had been racist and homophobic. So now this is the trick of racism, man. They get you to be, your society to be a bunch of freaking supremacists while they're so busy trying not to be racist. Like, really, racist is basically calling people names. Supremacy is where people have more rights, okay? And if you have a right not to be called names, okay, then you have a right that no one in the history of the history has ever had, okay? You supremacist, elitist piece of shit. Alright? Nobody has that right.
Of the public, harassment, alarm, distress, it's a criminal offence.
I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Harassment, alarm, distress, it's a criminal offence.
I'm aware.
If you make a members of the public, harassment, alarm, distress, it's a criminal offence.
I'm aware of that. Yeah, so that's what we're not doing that. What we're doing is about preaching our religion.
You're going to provide me with the details, yes or no?
What details are you requesting?
I need your name and your address.
Okay, so can you explain to me why do you need these details?
Pardon?
Can you explain to me? Because I don't understand why.
Okay, currently there's allegation.
Okay.
It's an offence.
So what allegation was it, sir?
Hate crime.
Hate crime.
Section 4, public order offence.
So what was said to cause a hate crime, sir?
Homophobic behaviour.
Give me an example. Give me an example.
I've not heard anything. I'm not saying I've heard anything. Homophobic behaviour.
Give me a example, sir. What was said to cause a hate crime, sir?
Homophobic behaviour.
Give me a example. What was said to cause a hate crime, sir?
Homophobic behaviour.
Give me a example, sir. Give me an example.
I've not heard anything. I'm not saying I've heard anything. Someone's called us, okay? It might be completely
Someone called someone a name. What's funny is they didn't even call them names. They're just doing their religious thing. But it's like, even if he was calling people names, like, really? This is like they like act like someone's got murdered or something. Like, what? Someone got they called him a name? What the hell? You gotta go to prison.
It might be true. I do not know. If you don't give me your name and address, I have grounds to arrest you.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He just got there. He don't know. But he needs to know because this is serious. This is a serious crime. They don't have money in UK for freaking that people that are getting killed, murdered, and raped. But they got all kinds of money for this apparently.
Okay, it might be completely untrue, it might be true, I do not know. If you don't give me your name and address, I have grounds to arrest you. Google it, it's code of practice, okay?
I'm aware of that. I know,
okay?
That's fine, I appreciate that.
Can I confirm you're aware of the allegation now that's been made?
No, I'm still not aware, that's why I'm asking some questions, yeah?
So, what aren't you sure of? I can see you smiling, so I think you'll find this a bit
I'm smiling because I'm a friendly person.
I'm going to ask you one last time, otherwise you're going to be placed under arrest. So, I'm going to ask you for the final time, sir. I'm not asking anymore, you've been asked too many times.
A Christian preacher who was convicted and reported to the government's counter-terrorism programme after misgendering a trans woman has won his appeal. David McConnell was convicted of causing harassment, alarm or distress following an incident in June 2021. He's had his conviction quashed yesterday. David McConnell's lawyer, Michael Phillips, joins me now. So really good to talk to you actually, Michael, because this is a thing that people say, misgendering as though it's some illegal thing that you have done. Is it illegal to misgender someone to start with?
I would certainly argue it is not. There is no law in the country which says that you cannot misgender somebody. You have to use their preferred pronouns. There is no law which exists.
Actually, there are laws that exist that say that, because if you say something that annoys somebody, then it falls under this hate crime, okay? And if you leave up, the person, anyone can say they're annoyed, you know what I mean? So if you're annoyed, then it's a hate crime. So, yeah. So if they're annoyed by their misgendering, then you literally have committed a hate crime. And if you keep watching, I'll show you some laws. They mention the laws themselves in some of these videos I'm showing you.
Which says that. And so it's quite frightening that we're in a situation now that very often we have laws which on their at face value are good laws. They could be used in appropriate ways for drunks coming out of a football match or out of a pub, and there's a public order situation. But for these laws to be misapplied in the way in which they have been misapplied on this particular occasion and on other occasions is extremely disturbing.
So what law was it that they used then to even take this any further? Because to me it seems absolutely ludicrous that could get to a point where it's actually going into a court of law.
It is the Public Order Act, 1986. And so Section 4A of the Public Order Act says that if you use threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behaviour which causes harassment, alarm, or distress, and you do so intentionally, you can be guilty of an offence. And so, in fact, the word insulting was taken out of Section 5, but for some reason it's been left in Section 4A, which is quite concerning, because I think that, how can it ever be a crime to insult anybody? But the judge said, well, look, it's no crime to insult somebody unless you do it intentionally. So if, in this particular case, my client was found to have said something, and the judge said it was insulting, however, he was just simply quoting from the Bible, and he was talking about his faith, which he genuinely believed in, and so in those circumstances, it could not be held to be a crime. But the fact of the matter
So if he wasn't religious, let's say he was an atheist or something like that, or a religion that doesn't care about trans whatevers, then he could he loses his right to speak freely and truthfully, really, about stuff. Really, okay, well, that's crazy.
the matter is, it's frightening, because it's obvious that the Crown believed he should be arrested, the police believed he should be prosecuted, the Crown Prosecution Service believed that this was the right thing to do, and also a judge in the Magistrates Court as well believed that he was guilty of an offence. So it's...
When is it going to stop? They keep taking it to the Supreme Court, or they keep taking it to the highest court in their country or whatever. When it's already making it all the way up to like the highest court in the country before they overturn it. If they overturn it, if it makes it to the Supreme Court. Not everybody, all these people, they're just regular people. They can't afford to freaking take this all the way to the Supreme Court. You know what I mean? Some of them actually get convicted and go to prison.
It took going up to the Crown Court, which on appeal, for them to realise that this was not an offence.
What an amazing, incredible waste of time. I'm sorry, but it just seems like we're wasting our time. I mean, if you've ever seen the family courts and the mess that is, the fact that they've actually got time to be dealing with situations like this is clearly, you could actually misgender someone by accident, and then for it to go, for this whole ricochet to happen, for it to end up in the Crown Court seems ludicrous, actually, in my view. What about the flag? There was an LGBT flag outside the police station. Am I correct? What was that about?
Yeah, so in fact, David went up to the police station.
Yeah, I showed you in other videos how all the government buildings have these LGBT flags on them. Not just the government public schools, all of them.
Where he had been arrested, he'd been taken a couple or so years ago, and he went to revisit it. And outside the police station, they had this pride flag, which is a political symbol, and it's very concerning, because a lot of people don't necessarily agree with the ideology which is behind pride, and it's when this isn't necessarily something about LGBT people, because many people who I know that well-known people who will say no, pride is one thing and being LGBT is another thing. There are people who are heterosexual who support pride, and there are people who are homosexual who don't like pride. So it is a political movement, and to align yourself so closely with it is to alienate a large part of society who do not feel comfortable with some of the things that particular movement has stood for.
You see, the thing with it, as you said, it's political, and political statements should not be made by police, because it's like taking the knee, it's like rainbow laces, it's all that stuff. I don't want to see it in my policing. I want to know that if somebody burgles my house, they'll be there and they'll catch the criminals. I don't want to see them showing how political they are or how much they have affinity towards a certain cause. I just want them to remain completely neutral and get on with doing the job. So what's the upshot of this then? So your client has been let go. This is nothing further. There's no further action or made.
See, the KKK, they wanted to have their flags all over, all the police. They wanted to be, the group that the police cared about, the white people. KKK, the Democrats. Yeah, this is just KKK ideology. It's supremacy. Nobody else. You don't put flags that don't represent everybody. There's only one flag that represents us all, the American flag. That's the only flag that should be on American government soil, any buildings or anything.
They move to something else. Are they trying again, or what's the outcome?
I mean, for this particular offence, he has been acquitted and said he can't be prosecuted for it again, and which is wonderful for him. But the thing is that it has a chilling effect on him, and even in court, people are afraid to use non-preferred pronouns because they're afraid that they may get into trouble with the judge, they may be in contempt of court, and so and I'm sure when he goes out next time, he's going to be fearful. He's going to be fearful that somebody else is going to make a report to the police, and he's going to have to go through this whole palaver again for being on bail and having to do community service, which is then overturned and so on. It's a lot of strain on an individual, and you can see that.
Well, listen, Michael, you need to make it your, David, sorry, you need to make it your mission to take out silly language in all this legal stuff and stop this.
See, that's what it is. You don't have to change the law if you just harass somebody in public society. If you just harass the hell out of them when they do something, isn't that the same thing as changing the law? Just like with these DAs. They get, these source paid DAs, right? They don't enforce the law, so they didn't have to really change the law to make something legal, like shoplifting or murder or rape or coming into the country illegally. You can just legalize it by not having any consequences, right? So if you have a DA that doesn't give any consequences, you have legalized it. Why can't anyone understand that when I say they legalized it? Like I say, they legalized, they made it illegal to have misgender someone. No, they didn't. Really? Well, why don't you go to the freaking UK and misgender someone publicly? Let me see how it works out with you, okay? When you come back, tell me how they didn't change the law because they didn't change the law, Yeah, okay, whatever. Same way with the criminals. I say they legalized, stealing. No, they didn't. Even though the DA refused. The DA goes on the freaking goddamn national TV and says he is not going to punish anyone who steals under $1,000. Isn't that the same thing as legalizing it? Okay, now I kind of went out of order. That last one, where the cops were arresting the guy, this isn't him. But the time before that, where you couldn't hear anything and I kind of had to keep pausing it and telling you what they were saying, this is, I could be wrong, but I believe this is that man, okay, that got arrested.
So David, you ran into some trouble in 2021 that became somewhat of a legal nightmare for you. You were out preaching, and take us through what happened.
Well, on that day, a normal day for me is to get prepared, get out into the central part of a city or a big town in England, set up and begin to preach and engage with people. In the UK, most people are very apathetic to the Christian faith, so I like to set up
Keep in mind, the UK is a Christian country. They're not like the United States where we're not based on any specific religion. They are a Christian country, right? And yet they're not allowed to talk about Christianity on the street or anywhere in public. Only Muslims and the LGBT cult are allowed to talk about their religion anywhere. Even in a Christian church, they can just run in the Christian church, take over, and tell them that you're going to have LGBT cult values, and no Christian values are, racist and homophobic.
I like to be on a stand so people can see me. I use amplification.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not sure. See, this happens so much in the UK right now. It's hard to keep these people apart on who's who, man. And when you have thousands of people every year, or hundreds of preachers, street preachers to go out and preach on. They get permits, though. These people, they're doing everything legal. That's why they all have cameras now, because they're so tired of being arrested for just basically reading the Bible.
I preach in a way which is interactive. People can ask questions and engage. So I have a lot of preaching like that, which has a lot of dialogue. And on that day, I've been preaching for about 30 minutes. I had some bits of interaction with some young Asian lads. And then, as I was preaching, I was approached. Well, there was a young man in women's clothes with a friend who turned up, and then I was approached with a question, from this individual who asked a question.